Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, the show in which we look at the players that have been linked to Arsenal and break them down in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insight. For today's show, we're talking all about the Spanish right back, Ivan Fresneda of Real Valladolid. I'm very happy to be joined for the show by the host of Ball Over Passion, Curran. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I'm all good, right? It's good to see you. It's good to see everyone in the comments. I hope everyone's doing well, and I think it's a great player to get into. So, looking forward to this.
Absolutely, yeah. You've been a fan of Fresneda for some time. You were talking a little bit off air about kind of becoming aware of him late last year when the links to Arsenal kind of started to ramp up. Tell me what's inspired you to really kind of get into learning about who he is.
I mean, obviously the links you always it's interesting because when we were first linked to him, I think it was like late November, early December. You kind of brush these things off as just another, one of these kids that you always get linked to just throughout the season. And then I decided to take a look just out of plain curiosity, really, because the kid is what, 19, and as we've said a lot of the time, we've got Brooke as well. I mean, we've got players that are coming through that are of similar ages. So what makes this kid stand out, and then what makes this kid so special? Because at the club already, we've got Tommy Asu, we've got White. Obviously, we don't want Cedric, but he is probably coming back. We don't know what's going on with him. So there's a lot of different issues, and we've got Saliba as well, who at Marseille played at right back. So there's a lot of right backs at the club. So what makes this guy so special that Mikel wants this guy? So for me, when I took a look, the first thing that stood out to me is, I think the main thing is how he uses his body and his physicality, and we'll get into it, all these different things. But if there was one takeaway I would like the audience to take away, is this guy is not as slender, obviously, as the trope is of Spanish right backs or Spanish players that are a bit slender, overly technical, not ready to get their foot in duels and really push physically. But this guy knows how to use his body. He's very clever with how he uses his body, and we'll get into why I think that this is a very interesting signing, because a lot of people have got into the whole Zinchenko, we need a right-sided Zinchenko, double inverted fullbacks, Man City, blah, 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 blah. But if you look at this, it's not as simple as just another Zinchenko. It's more akin to a kind of like a Zinchenko-White hybrid, where you have someone that out of possession, which we'll get into, that can sort of cover that third centre-back spot, but has the ability and the physicality to provide that overlap on the right-hand side. So, he's someone that I've followed for quite a while. I decided I'd taken a bit of a break from Twitter because at the end of the season, I felt like it was a bit don't really see any point to it. So I took a bit of a break, and the first thing I thought, you know what, this guy is. I haven't written on him yet, so I thought the first thing I'll do is I'll write about him, and it seemed to be quite popular because apparently he's coming to the club. So, or is one of the targets, let's put it that way.
Yeah,
so
it was your thread is what caught my attention in the first place, and why I reached out to you to have a greater and deeper discussion about him. But yeah, the links at the moment are certainly there. The interest from Arsenal is always been there. It's been there for the last 6 months. They didn't end up moving for him in January. They had other priorities and felt as though they still would be able to be in a good, strong position in the summer if indeed they saw greater progression. But we've got quite a few slides to get through and some in-game examples and some statistics to look at. And you mentioned there kind of like there's maybe a bit of a misconception about him being just a right-sided Zinchenko, and that maybe his defensive side of his game isn't maybe as appreciated as much as it should be. So talk us through some of the graphics we're looking at.
Yeah, so basically what you have here is from Wyscout. It's about his ability to recover the ball and where he's lost the ball. If you look at the first pitch there, you can see that the amount of recoveries just in that right centre back zone is quite clustered. And if you look at the raw numbers, he is up there with that. And one thing we will cover during this entire 40-minute, 50-minute, however long it is, a podcast, is he knows how to intercept the ball without overly committing. I think that's a major factor in how he defends. He's not someone that's overly aggressive, but he will put his body in the way of the ball. And that's where I get the White comparisons from, because we've seen how many times White just making that last ditch, put the body on the line tackle, or just be able to just to hassle and harry people out to the byline. He has this ability just to face up and basically make his defender go where he wants them to go. And Fresneda has a very similar thing. You see this. I often point to the game against Vinicius where he played in. We have a couple of screenshots from here about that. But if you look at how his ability to just stand up his opponent and really be aware of who he's playing against, the tendencies, knowing which way he wants them to go, and be able to shepherd them in the direction he's meant to go. He's very good at that, and that's something that I wouldn't emphasize. And we've got this game here. So if you look, he's very good at, and this is another thing we'll get into as well about his in possession stuff. Is if you look at the second one, he's very good at sort of like, if you remember Zinchenko versus Tottenham away, he had this ability just to shift the ball. He had his ability to shield the ball and then shift it away in key moments, especially in that first half where we were on top, and it basically just calmed the crowd down. He has that same ability with you can see in the second picture, just being able to shield the ball and take it away. But if you look in the first one, you can see he has that clean tackling technique where he times the ball, times his tackles very well. He isn't someone that goes in, going to overcommit, go crazy like a Ben Godfrey, for example, someone that's being very aggressive, very on the front foot, making sure to put their authority on. He times his tackles, times them well, but he's not someone that's going to shirk away. He's not someone that's going to let his opposition winger just sort of run wide. You can see here in this first screenshot about where his ability just to put his foot in. You want a defender to put their foot in. He's going to be aggressive, but have controlled aggression, be able to control it and be able to use that to your advantage. And I think that is something he exceeds it very well.
Yeah, having peak players in the team that obviously can recover possession, as you say, put their foot in is something that I think we need more of, especially when I think we lacked it when Saliba, for instance, was absent in the second half of the season. We lost him. You got a defender in Rob Holding who's not going to necessarily be as aggressive in trying to get out. And when he does, often it's mistimed. And we saw that at Man City. We saw that against Crystal Palace as well. But Fresneda's timing is really good, and his reading of the game is really good from that right-back defensive sided position as well. We've also got these examples looking at kind of what he does when he's kind of pressing in the same time. So winning duels in his own third, pressing in his own half when he's got to be aggressive and win those duels, and where he's losing them as well. So would you say that from what we're seeing in these graphics that he's successfully winning more of these duels than he's losing, and the ones that he is losing, are they a concern in any way?
I mean, if you look at the graphic here, you could see the duels that he's losing. The duels are winning. That's fine. Obviously, if you look at the percentages, he's one of the top defenders in the league at winning those defensive duels. In participating and then winning, he wins them at a fairly good rate. But he gets involved in those defensive duels. And but the main thing for me is when you look at the lost ones, there's the goal there, the little blue dot. That is one. That's one dot. The rest of them, he's losing them in positions where you're not really looking to take a shot. You're losing them out a bit wider. When he's coming inside a bit, yeah, there's shots there, but he's losing them in places where at the edge of the box where his centre back can come and cover him. When he's out wide defending, and that's what we need as a fullback. 1v1 defender out wide, because we've seen at times Ben White versus Jota at times where sometimes he can just get skipped past out wide, being defending out, being by the byline at times. When you win the ball out wide and you can actually have a fullback that is, he's grown up doing that. That's his bread and butter. He knows how to be that sort of shut down that winger out wide. That's what we need in this scenario with the fullback that we're bringing in, because on the left side we're looking to do a bit more of an inverted role. So you need someone that's going to not only be a good presence out wide, but also being able to come inside and provide that third centre back role as well. So he's, I would say, a bit more physical than Zinchenko, for example. He's 5'11", nearly 6 foot, 182 centimeters. He's filled out quite well. He's still only 19 as well, so he's not someone that is going to get smaller. He's still growing. He's still growing into his body. So for me, I just think that if you look at how he wins and loses his duels, he wins them. He contests them out wide. He's not someone that's going to contest a lot inside the box. He knows when to lay off to a centre back, and he knows when to be aggressive in that wide area.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be key. Obviously, slotting into that back three that Arsenal have with Zinchenko moving out, and you're left with White and Gabriel and Saliba as that three, and obviously White is also then tasked when he's moving forwards of kind of joining the attack in ways and helping out Bukayo Saka where need be. Looking at kind of this example you wanted to highlight in his game against Barcelona this season, why did that stand out for you?
I mean, for me, this game, the main thing for me was his ability to the way he wins his duels. I mean, that's the main thing I wanted to point out. He's won 12 or 15 duels. He's gone up against Pablo Torre, Alexander Balde. He's gone up against Ansu Fati, Lewandowski. He's won his duels. Eric Garcia, De Jong. He's gone up against these guys who guys in the chat will recognize, and they know that are top names. Balde has been one of the best defenders in the league in La Liga last season. So I just think that if you look at how he's contesting his duels and winning them, that's something that obviously the meme we know with Arteta, win the duels, etc. But it's a very, very key concept in our team. If you look, there's a quote from The Athletic saying that Arteta goes to if you aren't having people that win their 1v1 individual duels, you're not going to compete in the Premier League. You'll get swept up. You'll not be able to win that duel. Just physically, you can't compete. And to win 12 out of 15 duels against Barcelona, to have actions, and you could see the other thing I was going to point out, his passing as well. One key pass, the cutback. That was the main thing out for me. A very, very well-timed cutback. One of the main things I was going to mention that does need improvement. Sometimes he floats his crosses a bit too much, and then not enough whip on them, and not enough getting them, just the pace of them at times. He tries to just go ahead to the byline and cross. He does need a bit more venom on them at times. But if you go back and watch this game, the cutback, I could see Odegaard do that, get onto that every single time. I could see that mechanism working, and with improvement. Because the thing is, I think a lot of people when they talk about players, they always call them as the finished article. And this guy's 19 years old or 18, 19 years old. He's still going to grow. He's still got things to work on, and that's why he's going for like 25, maybe 30 million pounds. And for that age, for this amount of talent, there's a reason why Real Madrid, Barcelona, Borussia Dortmund, I think Juventus were linked in January. There's a lot of things to work on, but there's a lot of potential there. His passing, his short passing, he's someone that if you look at this graphic, that he has the ability to come inside a little bit more and dictate from the right half space and be a bit more aggressive in his passing. But he also likes to go down the byline. We have screenshots to that fact. But this is the main thing I wanted to talk about: aggression, ability to win their duels, and a calmness in possession. I think that's the main thing.
Let's look at this example. Game against is Almeria in this fixture?
Almeria.
Oh, there you go. So we see obviously the back three example of where he's kind of fitting in. We're going to see in a moment, as you mentioned there, about him playing out wide, but structurally he fits into this system. How much of a seamless transition do you think this would be to fit into that Arsenal right back role? I
mean, like his role and talent, it's there. The question is, as always with any signing, the ability to understand where your coach wants you at all times, I think, is there. The question is the stage. He played at La Liga for a season, but you've got to remember these guys are young kids as well. That's why you're bringing him in now at 19 to really mold in that role. I think that he is ready. Like if I look at my eyes tell me he's ready. Like everything on the field is ready, but I can never say like that it's going to be a seamless transition, because you've seen guys like even with Vieira this season, like Vieira has everything to be at that level, but the physicality is lacking. There's always something that can be that first season that's kind of going kind of iffy, yes or no, and then the training comes in, the seamless, the positioning comes in, the ability for the coach to know how to use the player comes in as well, and then it starts to click. So it just seems seamless is not, but the ability and the potential is there for him to fit in pretty much seamlessly.
And talking about kind of his positioning in those wide areas, you can see what he brings to the team. He provides that width in terms of a kind of a relationship partnership with Bukayo Saka, and what you see from Ben White with Saka this season. I think there's been times this season where maybe Saka has, I think, lacked more support from Ben White. You know, you think about Martinelli, what he gets from Zinchenko or Tierney, whoever starts on that left. And sometimes I think that Saka's been left a little bit isolated. White's definitely improved a hell of a lot going forwards. But Arsenal, in my view, when they look to bring in that right-sided fullback, it has to be someone who, whilst has all the benefits of White and what he can bring, but could also add something a bit different. Because there's times where we sub White for Tomiyasu, or we sub Tomiyasu for White, and nothing really changes because they're two quite similar players in that fullback role. So do you think that Fresneda would add variation to Arteta's kind of game plan with that sub?
Fresneda is quicker, first of all. I think that ability to accelerate in wide areas, to be able to go from, you know, like Zinchenko does and sometimes Xhaka does, to go from wide to central and then wide again. So that ability to, through the phases, to have the understanding to know when to accelerate, when to time their runs in that final third, I think he does. He knows that very well. As I said, I do think he needs to improve his crossing at times. I think he's very good at cutting back. He's a good. He does very well cutting back into a sort of penalty spots type of zone. But the issue is, I feel like he needs to have a bit more whip and a bit more venom on those crosses. If we're going to have, like, for example, I don't know, a Martinelli at the back post, waiting for a header or something like this, I think I would like to see a bit more venom in his crossing. But the key thing from what I think can be a bit different to White is he has that ability to position wide a bit better than White does, and same with Tomiyasu, because both of them, let's be straight, they're both centre backs. They're working at right back. They both have that tenacity to, in central zones, to sort of when they're out of possession, quickly mop up and recycle. They're not someone that's going to go in possession and go, okay, I'm going to provide the width. Bukayo come inside. Bukayo often starts. I mean, if you look at our possession, Bukayo often starts like just after the halfway line on the right hand flank, out wide. He's not going to be doing that with Fresneda. It's just not going to happen, because Fresneda likes those zones. If you go back to the Barcelona game that I was talking about, you can see that the zones he's receiving in is those zones that I was talking about. Bukayo, this one here. You can see on the third picture. Look where where he's picking up the ball. That's where Fresneda would like to pick up the ball, and that's where Bukayo has been at times. So for me, it's interesting to see that when you look at people that we're thinking about targeting, we're looking at obviously right centre backs as well. We're looking at right backs, but for me, the issue is everyone thinks we're going for this inverted system, inverted. We need width. We need some expansive. We need expansive football at times. We need to be able to use the entirety of the pitch. If you look at, for example, the Bournemouth game, we played with 6 in that final line, because we really needed to stretch the pitch out and have people crash the box at the correct times to really turn on the screw and really get into those zones where we can, score goals. Whereas sometimes you're going to need a 5 a bit more compact, because you're in a big game. It needs to be a bit more compact, or the 3-3-4 we've sometimes done as well. So there's a lot of different variations of what we need to do, and Fresneda gives you a bit more of an attacking option that can both invert but can also go wide, because there's also scenarios where he can come inside a bit, dictate the play those kind of tip-tap passes with hopefully Rice or a Partey or whoever is in the center of the pitch for us. He can come inside, and he has the technique and the ability to really participate in those kind of rondo type situations in the middle of the pitch. But he can also provide that width and that outlet to cross it. The only thing is, and I'm going to stress this again because it is important, because people are harping on about the crossing. I need to see more of his crossing. That's the main thing for me.
Crossing, I think sometimes, especially in this Arsenal team,
Mm.
gets quite. I think it's overrated crossing. I think it's more for me, especially in the Arsenal side of things. It's about low-driven cutbacks that are the
Yes,
more what
which
we
is
need to see. And it's good because the example that you used earlier on the in the Barcelona game, that key pass that we saw was a cutback. You know, that was that type of back across rather than it going kind of like perpendicular to the run or curling in towards the box. I want to see more getting to the byline and bringing it back because they're the really good opportunities that we see. If you think back to the Southampton game, I think it was Martinelli's goal that took it to 2-1 on the day. That type of cutback in those moments is what I want to see more of from Arsenal. I think we would create a lot more high profile, high quality chances by creating those types. Whereas Ben White, I feel as though he gets into those right wing zones and kind of panics. Like he doesn't, it's like this is still all new to him because he's more so a centre back, and like he'll do a little dinked cross sometimes, or he'll just kind of aimlessly put one into the box, and sometimes he'll make the right pass. Remember the pass he made in the away game against Southampton for Xhaka, for instance, which is a really good pass. But it needs to be better refined. And that's why I think that a lot of people putting pressure on Brook Norton-Cuffy, for instance, who spent time on loan at Coventry this season. He needs to refine his game going forwards because whilst he's showing a lot of promise, he's still very raw, whereas Fresneda is showing already a lot of really good traits in his game. We've got this example here against Athletic Club as well. Talk me through this one.
Yeah, this is the main thing I was talking about the Zinchenko comparisons is he loves to have these little drag backs. You know how like Zinchenko will kind of turn on himself and kind of drag the ball back, do a couple of ball rolls, and then reset. Like this is what Fresneda is bread and butter. He loves having kind of baiting tackles and baiting people, and then kind of just shoveling away and moving the ball. He's very good at that. He's very good at being someone that is aware of his space, the space around him, and being able to just sort of jink out of situations and really just get into spots where he wants to be, so he can recycle or play a ball in behind or whatever he wants to do. He in all phases of play. Don't forget, he could do this building up. He could do this, in those sort of second phase situations where you're thinking, let's recycle the ball, or let's draw out the opposition block, or do something like that, or in the final third where you're trying to take on your man and beat a man and get the ball into the box, or crash into the box yourself. So he's very good at sort of manipulating the ball and getting the ball to where he wants it to be, getting his opponent to where he wants them to be. So he's not someone that is unaware of how to manipulate situations. He's very good at sort of being that sort of possession, that second phase recycler that we like at the club at the moment. Odegaard, Zinchenko, these kind of guys, where you need to have that ability just to keep the ball, be a bit calm, pass it about, and see what you can do.
Now, we've got, obviously, as we do these tactical breakdowns, we have the opportunity to kind of look at some of the alternatives to the player. In the last show that we did with Sasha Bowie, we looked at how he compared to a number of players, including Fresneda and White. We also looked at Kyle Walker-Peters. So I thought I'd throw in a couple of different fullbacks this time, players that have been linked to Arsenal as well, being João Cancelo, of course, being one, who I'd be very surprised if he ends up at Arsenal, to be honest, and Timothy Castagna of Leicester being the other. They've all played plenty of minutes, so we've got plenty of opportunity to see what they're capable of. We've seen for this season in terms of Fresneda, obviously very much a right-sided player. The difference between the others is that Castagna and Cancelo can both offer opportunities to play on either flank, which obviously does indeed kind of lean more toward their favour. And I have looked at Arsenal, the idea of Arsenal signing, a right back as kind of freeing Ben White to also be cover for William Saliba, not just the opposition, not just the alternative right back option. But to get your thoughts, Curran, on kind of those defensive duels, you touched on them earlier, 9.37, far higher than any other on this list. He's an aggressive player and loves to win the ball back.
Loves to win the ball back. That's the main thing for me. I think that if you're talking about his defensive duties, there was one, I think one of the screenshots above where if he's kind of he's just leading the ball out the pitch, and he's being aggressive but not overcommitting. I think that's the main thing for me. Aggression but not overcommit. He's someone that allows the players around him to sort of be. He's got his man. He knows what he's doing with when he's in his defensive positions. And I think when we look at the other options, if you look at a Castagna or a Cancelo, what Cancelo is one of one. You don't know he is Cancelo. He is João. That's who he is. You're not going to get anything you don't know. He's what 29 this summer, 28, something like that. He is what he is, and personally, I think that he will probably go to Real Madrid, and that's just my opinion, because I think that they need a right back, and I think they've looked at Fresneda, but I do think they are going to need. They like their Galactico signings. Let's be honest. I think they will go for a Cancelo or something like that. And as for Castagna, I haven't even thought about it. Have we been linked to Castagna? Is that just a?
Yes, we have. Yeah, that's why I've got him on there. Yeah, there's been some very light links, shall we say?
I haven't even even thought about it. I think he's a good player. I don't know whether he'd be the. I don't think he has the same awareness that a Fresneda has. I think Fresneda has more awareness in all thirds. It makes it a bit more of an enticing signing, especially the age as well. I think the ceiling of I hate these words. The ceiling of Fresneda is someone that something that you can't. It's just madness. I think he's very much someone that could be a top right back for 5, 7, 8 years, something like this. So I think out of all of the options we've got, I think if we were to pursue one, I mean, look, if you're looking at I know a lot of people do these co-signs. If you look at, we've got Borussia Dortmund, Real Madrid, Barcelona, all these clubs. But Borussia especially wanted him to start for them. I mean, these are clubs, especially Borussia Dortmund, that love developing talent and bringing them to the top level. And then obviously Barcelona, Real Madrid are clubs where, top level clubs that need these kind of players. And as a Spanish boy, I think there's no better club to go to than one of those two. But as for these examples specifically, I think I've always said that if you look at Fresneda, if you put Ben White and Zinchenko and you kind of mash them into one, I think you get Fresneda. I think there's I think obviously White's a bit stronger. I think White's a bit better defensively. Zinchenko is a little bit better in possession wise, technically. But the question is where's the development going to go for Fresneda? I think the ability and the potential of the kid is so, it's on point. And that's what you could take away from anything if you were to say this video. I think if you put both of our fullbacks together and kind of I gave him, I put him at 19 years old. I think that's kind of what even Fresneda is kind of like.
It's an exciting profile, is absolutely right. Just to run through a few more of these stats as well. Aerially, coming out in the low kind of aerial wise frequency in terms of it and winning them as well. It's not what I would say is his strongest asset in his defensive repertoire. Maybe an area that he needs to work on specifically. And we'll come on to questions about physicality in a bit. Interceptions we talked about earlier, really good. Ranks the highest on this list with 5.35 per 90, higher than Cancelo, Castagna and White. Here, in terms of losses and recoveries, we talked as well with that graphic that you saw earlier on in the game about how aggressive he can be in the tackle. He's got 8.48 losses, sure, but he's nearly matching that. And that's what we kind of look out for, is how close the recoveries tend to be to the losses. Because for fullbacks in particular, you tend to see their losses higher because they're adventurous. They want to try and get forward. They want to try and play those key passes. But when their recoveries are bordering on being as close as they are to those losses, that's a really good sign as well. Moving into passing, do you think that is that worrying as a stat? On 78.7% pass completion, he's not broken through into the 80% as we see with all the other three as well.
I mean, with passing, and don't forget, you're looking at João Cancelo, Ben White, and Timothy Castagna. All three have been playing in the Premier League. This guy is probably getting relegated from La Liga. He's been playing in a league, because the thing is, passing obviously it comes from this up. You have to get the people receiving it as well. Like if you're looking at completion, the people that are receiving it are just as important. I think it is something you can work on for sure. I wouldn't call it a sort of a deal breaker.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it that. I wouldn't call it a weakness. I think it is something he can work on though. And as I've said, the crossing and the kind of, sometimes he does get a bit, he needs to develop it. He needs to develop, and I think that's the main thing. I don't think it's a weakness. I think it's something that is something to improve on, an area to improve on.
Lovely stuff. But in looking in terms of kind of where he's placing those passes, 75.9% of those passes into the final area are actually more accurate than both Castagna and Cancelo's passes, which is, again, we're getting very promising. And that continues when you look at the passes into the box as well. He's got more accurate passing into the box than both Castagna and Cancelo again. So whilst overall the passing maybe not be as accurate as those other two, when it comes to those forward passes, those progressive passes, there's clearly a lot of promise there, which is exciting. In terms of on the ball, 2.75 dribbles per game. No, not as frequent as someone like Cancelo, who loves to get forward and drive the ball, but he is doing it a lot more than what Castagna and Ben White do. And with 58.1%, he's got the highest dribble completion of any player on this tier as well. In terms of goals and assists, he didn't get any this season. Now,
he didn't get any.
When Tavares has gone on loan, he scored 6 goals and is being battered, and quite rightly, because I've got a good friend of mine who's a Marseille fan who says he's awful, right? And so I think goals and assists can sometimes be a bit, what's the word I'm looking for, deceptive in terms of looking at defenders specifically. But what I do like to look out for is assists when it comes to fullbacks, and kind of what type of chances are they creating? Because Tavares has got none for Marseille, and that's been used significantly against him. Is it a worry, or is the context of, you've already talked about the fact that he's playing in a side that's fighting for relegation and so therefore isn't really getting into the positions enough to get the chances to create those opportunities? And when they do, the options they have in their forward line aren't necessarily the best to then take those chances.
I mean, I think it's a combination of both, to be honest. I mean, there have been a couple of chances I've seen where he's just going to positions and he's kind of just lost composure. There have been instances of that. I'm not going to say that it's all brilliant, because he does need to work on his ability to just put his foot through the ball at times. He needs to work on his ability just to. I think the main thing with his passing and his crossing is pace. I think that comes with development, and that comes with, because the thing is, he's placing these things right, and when he's going into the box, he's getting into the right positions. It's just, I think, a case of composure and pace. I think that's a maturity thing. I think that's not something that I would say that is a strength of his by any means of talking about it. But he's someone that is going to do what we need to do as a fullback, and that's the main thing I look at when it comes to him. I think when you look at the things that he's gone through this season, he's been injured quite a bit this season as well. Obviously, they're probably going to get relegated. There's like 6 teams in La Liga that are in or about relegation or something like this, going into the final day. So we'll see what happens with that. So there's a lot, and I think that when you talk about, I think one good point you made is, are people not getting onto the chances? And I think that obviously is something that contributes. But I have to reiterate that there has to be improvement from him when it comes to his final third, just production.
Big game on the final day. Getafe, of course, still down there and involved in that fight. For me, I'm gutted that Espanyol have fallen apart as a side.
Yeah.
They are my Spanish team, Espanyol. So, yeah, another year in the second tier, the ownership, despite all the promise of the money they had, not going into good places, unfortunately. So we come to the last part of the show, which is the verdict. And of course, some of your questions as well, which help us reach that verdict. Some of you have asked some fair questions, which I'm going to bring up. Gooner Jake says, Curran, do you think that he'd be able to start in the Premier League? And Ramper says, the Premier League is fast and physical. Will Fresneda be able to handle that physicality?
Look, in terms of starting, yes, he can start in this league. I wouldn't say he would come and start every game. I would say that he'd be someone that you bring in and you bring up his pace. I think probably a Vieira season where you kind of just bring him in and make sure that he's molded to the correct ability to go forward and see what happens. And as to regards the physicality in the fast league, some of his duels against guys like Vinicius, guys like Dembele at times, because he has played left back as well. Guys like Dembele, to guys like Ferran Torres, he's gone up against these guys and he's been fine. There is a reason why he's viewed so highly in Spanish football right now, is because he has the ability to take on any winger and really do a job defensively. He has the ability to shield the ball very well. He has the ability to manipulate and make sure that his wingers are getting to the spots where he can defend properly, whether it be shepherding the ball out of play or putting in it, timing his challenge very well. And his body positioning is very good in terms of he doesn't get cross-footed. He's chest forward to his defender, and he's able to read the ball. He doesn't get duped by what's going on around him. He's very much focused on what his task is. I think he takes a lot of pride in his defending, and it's something that if he was to come, I wouldn't call it sort of like a lot of people go on to Nuno about his sort of defending and he was just going forward. I think people might actually get the opposite view. I think he's very raw in the final third, but defensively very, very sound. And physically, I mean, he's not quite 6 foot. He's 5'11", maybe nearly 6 foot, and he's got the ability just to be able to go one-on-one with these defenders. So yeah, I think he can handle the physicality for sure.
Question from let's go to Winning Ways. Says, I don't want someone on the up and coming. I think we pass by signings like this, and I don't think he's better than, say, Ben White. But if we get a Cancelo, it takes our team to a whole new level because he's a very special player. Where do you kind of sit on this? I mean, if Arsenal were to sign Fresneda, do you think it's the right type of signing for that position, or do you agree with Winning Ways that Arsenal should be looking for more established players for the season they've got coming up?
I don't want defensive liabilities on the team anymore. And we've seen what Cancelo has done in big moments. We've seen where his temperament is. I don't personally want Cancelo in the team. That's something that I'm not very on board with. I think just as a fit, it doesn't fit with the philosophy we're going with for right now. And in terms of on the up and coming, I think that playing an entire season in Spain as a starter and probably their best talent as they produced in a long while. They were very close to cashing in January because this guy is their guy. That's the guy. He was brought up there. He's very much their person. They know he's going to get a lot of money for. They're going to get quite a lot of money for him. So for me, I think that the question is do we want to pass up on a profile that's correct for what we need in this league, for known quality that we don't know how is going to fit in the team? And I think his profile is exactly what we need in terms of being defensively sound, being able to provide that width for Saka to come inside, to be someone to combine with, in possession very sound, technically quite sound, just needs a bit of polishing. I don't think that is someone we pass up on when, especially at the price we're looking at, 25, 30 million pounds. You're looking at 70 million for Cancelo. I think if we're looking at signing, we're concentrating our funds on two central midfielders. It doesn't make sense to go massive on right back when we need to spend, I would say, 150, maybe not 170 million on two central midfielders. Personally, it doesn't make sense to me. And we need a right back or a right centre back. We need one of them because this season and last season and technically the season before, when the injuries have come in and we've had Holding come in, things have kind of fallen apart at times. And we need to be, if we keep repeating the same mistakes, we can't really be looking at the club and saying, oh, we're next year. You have to take these things and you have to learn from them. And at the moment, if we don't learn from them, we're not going to be in the same position we were this year. We're just missing out on our targets.
I think that's probably one of the best explanations against the idea of signing Cancelo that I've heard. And I think that when you look at the defensive side of things, you're absolutely spot on. We need to have options that will prevent us from conceding 42 goals if we want to win a title, because you can't concede 42 goals and be on to try and win a title. So, yeah, and I think Zinchenko is an absolute starter mainstay. Like, if you have Zinchenko available, you play him because he's just so good and so influential. Yes, there's defensive vulnerabilities, but what he brings in the forward line offsets that so significantly. But then you can't be using someone on the right like a Cancelo because it just unbalances things far too much. But a Fresneda, someone who, yes, can still offer you something maybe going forwards a little bit more than Ben White does, but doesn't lose out on that defensive security that he still brings to the team. So last question, £20 million, is he worth it?
For me, it's a no-brainer. I think he's one of, if not the best talent, like in terms of talent right now, that for per cost value that we have on the market right now. It's a steal. Yeah, I don't know why there's a debate of, I don't know why Real Madrid aren't going. I know why they are, because they want Cancelo.
Yeah.
But for me, I think there's not much better value. I understand the Bowie shouts and the Simican shouts. I understand, but in terms of profile for what we need someone that has the ability to play inside and outside, and that's what this kid does. He's someone that is really good at being aware in the first third and the second third. He needs refining in the final third. I think that's the only thing you could hold against him. And for what we need a defender. We need someone that can defend properly. And that's this guy.
Interesting stuff. I see Reese Turner in the chat who joined us for our breakdown on Sacha Bowie. Says great analysis. Do you think he's enough to change up the style if we need to in games where Arteta is looking for something different? Is he too different to Ben White? You know, you said there, you rounded off saying like he needs to develop his game in the final third. You mentioned that he's faster. If you are, say, at an Everton where we're 1-0 down, or you're at Southampton and it's 1-1, bringing off Ben White for Fresneda, is that going to change things tactically to suit us if we are, you know, trying to press for that goal? Or do you think it's not changing it up all that much?
I think if you bring on a Fresneda, it gets the best out of Saka. I think that's the main thing for me. I think if you bring on a Fresneda, I think he hugs the touchline more, and you bring Saka inside, and you can get the best out of him. And say you can even put different guys in that position as well. If it's Jesus there, or if it's Trossard there, they're better inside. These guys, these aren't pure out and out, you know, outlet wingers going on the outside trying to beat their fullback one-on-one. These guys that like to work in combination, hit the box, get inside, and be that sort of half space creator or finisher from that space. And this guy, what he will do is he will make his wingers better. And that is why I'm not as worried as the final third stuff as others I think are or aren't really talking about, because I think a lot of people talk about these guys and they just go, oh, they're the best thing in the world. It's the best talent ever. But they don't look and see what actually you're going to get. And this is what you're going to get from this guy.
Curran, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever anyone's listening in the world. We appreciate it. Tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
Yeah, thank you first of all for Tom and everyone in the comments. Appreciate it. Appreciate it coming on. My name's Curran. You can find me at Twitter at CurranBOP. I do host Ball Over Passion on YouTube. We're taking a bit of a break at the moment because people have commitments and things, but we are going to be coming back soon. I think probably next month or something like this on the YouTube. So if you do like what you hear, do subscribe over there. And again, cheers, Tom. It's been a while since I've done something on this, so it's a bit of a kind of a gentle ease back into podcasting. So I appreciate your time, mate.
No, of course. Absolute pleasure having the show. And yeah, please do check out Ball Over Passion. I'm going to leave a link to the channel in today's video description. So you've got no excuses but to go and make sure that you check it out. We'll, of course, be back tomorrow morning with the 8 a.m. show, bringing you all the latest Arsenal transfer news, of course, that's happened in the last 24 hours. There hopefully will be a show for you later on tomorrow afternoon as well. I'm not actually going to be going to Molineux as was planned. The game at the Emirates on Wednesday has left me injured. So that's what happens when you don't play football for 6 months. So I'm not going to be going to Molineux tomorrow, but it does mean I should be able to edit together all the footage from Wednesday to have a show out for you guys tomorrow afternoon. So make sure you look out for that. Turn those notifications on. Do subscribe as well. We're doing these tactical breakdowns on all of Arsenal's transfer targets throughout the course of the summer transfer window, so you won't want to miss it. We'll see you again soon. Have a fantastic evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you happen to be in the world, and we'll see you on the next one. And as always, up the Arsenal.